everyone, hola, buenos días, and welcome to this Spanish GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. So, in this particular video tutorial, we are looking at how to tackle the reading aloud task. This is a part of the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam for certain exam boards from 2026 onwards. So we're going to look at who this affects. And if you are doing the reading aloud task, of course, there will be plenty of tips on how to boost your grade in the reading aloud task and make sure that you are as prepared for this new part of the Spanish GCSE exams as possible. So let's get into it. Firstly, my name's Dhananjay Talwar, and I studied French and Italian for my MA at the University of Cambridge. I graduated from there back in 2015, and I've been an educator since that time, mainly as a full-time tutor, actually. I've learned more than 20 languages to different levels myself, and that includes at least 9 of them to fluency, including Spanish, of course. So it's something that I really enjoy, a real hobby and passion of mine. And I likewise love to inspire others and students to learn languages, making sure that they know the benefits of doing so, efficient methods for doing so, while having fun at the same time, and helping them to reach their target grades. And I have helped over 500 students already to achieve or even surpass their target grade in languages at GCSE or iGCSE level while I've been a full-time tutor. I have taught about 8 languages thus far to GCSE or iGCSE level. And I've taught many of those at higher levels as well. And it's been a very rewarding journey. So, firstly, these are the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE exam boards. This should be accurate as of August 2025. There are 4 exam boards for GCSE Spanish and 2 of them for iGCSE Spanish. And there can be, as we'll see, differences between different exam boards. So it's good to be aware of your one, the one that you're studying, as early as possible. The material in this particular video, though, is actually only relevant for students of AQA or Pearson Edexcel GCSE exam boards, because the reading aloud task is a new task, which will be in the language exams for GCSE for these particular exam boards only from 2026 onwards. So this only affects, and this is only relevant for students of AQA or the Pearson Edexcel GCSE exam boards. And if you are a student studying AQA or Pearson Edexcel GCSE for your Spanish GCSE exams, then I highly recommend watching this, because I know many students are quite concerned about the changes to the syllabus and format for these particular exam boards. And they'd like to know more about how to prepare. And this video should provide exactly some of that information. Right, so the reading aloud task, as I've mentioned, is new for the exams, for GCSE exams from 2026 onwards, which means that we do not have a huge amount of material available and information available, but we do have sample material provided by both AQA and Pearson Edexcel GCSE, the 2 exam boards for which there will be this reading aloud task as part of the speaking exam. We do have indications of how it will be marked, examined, and what the reading aloud task would consist of. So it is a task that only exists, of course, for certain exam boards. So it's important to be aware of that, first of all. And it will take place towards the beginning of the speaking exam. There is a slight difference between these exam boards. For AQA, I believe the reading aloud task will take place just after the role play, whereas for Pearson Edexcel GCSE, the reading aloud task would be the first part of your speaking exam, and the role play would then follow. And of course, it's not relevant for other exam boards besides those 2. In the reading aloud task, the student is asked to read a short passage out loud in Spanish. So you have to read aloud so that the examiner and the tape, of course, can hear you. And you then have to respond to a certain number of follow-up questions, not a huge amount of follow-up questions in number. I believe there's 4 of these for AQA and 2 generally for Pearson Edexcel GCSE. Those follow-up questions will all be based on the same topic area as the reading aloud task and the passage itself that you would have just read out. I'll show you examples, of course, for more clarity. But here, before that, are some of my top tips for how to tackle the reading aloud task. So, the reading aloud task has a lot to do with sound symbol correspondence. A lot of the new elements for these GCSE exams for languages, for AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE relate to sound symbol correspondence, including the reading aloud task and the dictation task, for instance. And for that reason, sound symbol correspondence essentially refers to the connection or relationship between symbols or letters or combinations of letters in a language and the sounds that they create and that they make. Spanish, in particular, is actually a phonetic language, which means that it is written exactly how it is pronounced, which makes it a lot easier to know how to write Spanish and to be able to write Spanish just from hearing it as well. So that is an advantage if you're doing Spanish for GCSE or iGCSE. But nevertheless, I would practice my pronunciation beforehand. Of course, the reading aloud task, you have to read a passage out loud. So you will be evaluated to some extent on your pronunciation. You do not have to sound like a native speaker, as that would be very harsh and unrealistic for them to test you like that. But yes, your pronunciation should be clear, it should be comprehensible, and the examiner and those listening to the tape should be able to understand clearly what you mean to say in Spanish. Try to also anticipate the follow-up questions. So you will know that the reading aloud task is based on a particular topic area. You'll know the topic area as well, because you'll have your candidate card for your reading aloud task just before the start of your 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time. So you could think ahead if you've got time within that preparation time of 10 to 15 minutes. You could try and anticipate what you may be asked as follow-up questions, given that you know the material in the passage that you have to read out loud. Although I would not spend huge amounts of time on that because it can be difficult to predict exactly what questions will come up. When you answer the follow-up questions, that's an important part of this reading aloud section of this exam too. Then do expand more on your answers. Don't stick to just one or two sentences. I would keep that as a real minimum and try and go a bit beyond that if you can, and try to use some range of tenses and topic-specific vocabulary as well. So don't stick with just the present tense. Try and incorporate perhaps past or future tenses too, and you can even vary your language and grammar, especially beyond that, if you feel able to. So I'm just going to show you some examples now. These examples are, of course, taken from the exam boards in question. So there's only two of those, which are AQA and Pearson edXL GCSE. This first example is from the sample material provided by the AQA exam board, and specifically for foundation tier. So you can see the text itself, as well as the instructions written out, as they would be on your candidate card for the reading aloud task. I will read through this text in a minute, and that is, of course, what the student would be required to do. It also then tells you that you'll be asked 4 questions in Spanish that relate to the topic of healthy living and lifestyle, all related to the same topic area as the text or passage itself. And it tells you that there will be 4 questions in Spanish, which you would have to answer just after completing the reading of this passage. And in order to score the highest marks, you must try to answer all 4 questions as fully as you can. So that's just a warning, as we said, to not stick to very short one-word or short phrase answers. You need to go beyond that to really maximize your marks in the follow-up questions for the reading aloud task. The first thing to do when you're presented with this candidate card is always read through the instructions, regardless of which task it is for. For your speaking exam, make sure you're very familiar with the instructions and understand what you've got to do. Then during the exam, you'll be asked to read out the following text in Spanish. So let me do that for you. This is what I would do if I were the candidate. I would read it aloud as such. So, para tener una vida sana, es importante hacer ejercicio. Corro en el parque con mi primo. También juego en un equipo de fútbol. Sin embargo, odio el gimnasio. Como poco azúcar, aunque me encantan las hamburguesas. Okay, so sound symbol correspondence really helps with being able to read aloud in a foreign language accurately. That's something to practice. In Spanish too, you can watch out for the accents, because if there is an accent in a word, then that is where the emphasis or the stress in the word will go. And if there's no accent, then the emphasis or stress will always go on the penultimate syllable in a word. There will, of course, be foundation tiers. So once you have read the follow-up questions. So once you have read out the passage, you will be given a series of follow-up questions. You'll be asked in turn. And these are the 4 follow-up questions for this specific reading aloud task for AQA. There would only be 2 of them for Pearson at Excel GCSE. So the questions are given in red, which are ¿Cuál es tu opinión sobre el deporte? What's your opinion about sports? ¿Qué prefieres beber? What do you prefer to drink? ¿Qué piensas de fumar? What do you think about smoking? And ¿Cuándo comes comida rápida? When do you eat fast food? And you can see that I've written out my ideal or model answers for each of those just below each question in orange. So you can take some time to read through those. And I've provided the translations of everything in brackets in English too. So just take a bit of time to read through everything, and I will point out some aspects of my answers as well. You can see that my answers are actually relatively simple. I haven't used a huge amounts of different grammar structures. I have stuck largely to the present tense. I vary that a little bit using some more complicated verb forms like the present subjunctive here. No creo que sea bueno para la salud. I don't think it's good for health. Sea is present subjunctive of the verb ser. And again, aunque la comida rápida sea muy barata en general, sea is again the present subjunctive from the verb ser. However, I haven't varied the grammar too much. I've stuck to the exact question, so I've made sure that my answer is very relevant to each question that is being asked. And I've included some topic-specific vocabulary perhaps as well. Words like sabroso, tasty, saludable, healthy, are certainly relevant to the topic of health here. Deporte, perhaps too, la salud, health, and potentially a few others as well. I have used one much more complicated or more advanced verb form, which is the imperfect subjunctive of the verb tener, to have, si tuviera la elección, if I had the choice, and then followed that up with the conditional tense. That's to vary my grammar, essentially, and to score more marks. Other than that, the focus really, though, has been on keeping it relatively simple and making sure not to make mistakes in Spanish. Okay, on to example 2 then. This is taken from the other exam board for which the reading aloud task is relevant, and that's Pearson at Excel GCSE. Again, this is taken from sample material, but this time it's for higher tier. So you can see the text itself that you'd have to read out loud given here on the candidate card, as well as some other instructions and very useful information. So it says, Andrea, your friend, writes about her views on music. Read out the text below to your teacher, as I'll do shortly. You can see that this reading aloud task is again connected to a specific theme. Here it's media and technology. And the instructions are given below, so very important to read through those thoroughly as well. It says, once you have read the text to your teacher, you must hand this card to them. You will then be asked 2 questions related to what you've read. You're expected to say a few words or a short phrase or sentence in response to each question. One-word answers will not be sufficient to gain full marks. It's safer to go beyond that and to say more rather than too little. So this is how I would read the text itself out loud. Después del instituto quiero descansar. Suelo escuchar las voces tranquilas de mis cantantes favoritos. A causa de mi madre, siempre necesito usar los auriculares, lo que me molesta porque prefiero subir el sonido. Como mis compañeros, pienso que las canciones nos dan confianza y ayudan con las presiones del colegio. Okay, so sound symbol correspondence is important. For example, knowing that the letter J, for instance, in Spanish, is almost like a strong H, it would be in English. And other sounds made by certain letter combinations. So double L would be often like a Y or Y sound in Spanish, and so on. That's what sound symbol correspondence refers to. So it's important to be clear on those. other than that, comprehensibility, really, making sure that the examiner can understand clearly what you're saying in Spanish and what you're attempting to communicate is the key when doing this reading aloud, when reading aloud the passage. And as promised, here are the follow-up questions, along with some example or model answers. So for Pearson Edexcel GCSE, there'd only be 2 follow-up questions, as stated. And the questions are given in red here, which are ¿Qué te gusta hacer para relajarte? What do you like to do to relax? And ¿Cuál es tu opinión de los exámenes? What's your opinion of exams? And I've given my model answers for each of them just below each question. The model answers are in orange, and then I've provided translations for everything in brackets in English too. So I'll let you read through this and just draw your attention to some features in my answers as well. You can see I have varied my grammar a little bit. You do not have to give extremely elaborate answers for the follow-up questions in the reading aloud task. I've gone towards the higher end of the number of words that you need to provide in your answer. Some of the more complex grammar forms or verb forms include the imperfect subjunctive here, si pudiera, and then the conditional tense, pasaría. I have perhaps used some slightly harder or more topic-specific words as well. Practicar deportes, to play sports. Descansar, to relax, just as a synonym of relajarse, for example. Ir al extranjero, to go abroad, and so on. I have varied my tenses somewhat. So again, I've chucked in a present subjunctive form, sean, which is the present subjunctive of the verb ser. Sería is the conditional tense again. And a slightly more complicated grammatical construction. Después de haber terminado, after having completed or after having finished. Other than that, I've really prioritized the accuracy of the Spanish and made sure to include all of the necessary details for the question. So I've made my answer very relevant to the question itself each time. Okay, now it's quiz time. So just a brief quiz to test your knowledge and your understanding of this reading aloud task for AQA and Pearson Edexcel GCSE. So, question number 1, how can you practice for your reading aloud task? Let me give a little bit of time to think through this. Of course, as I mentioned, not every student will have to do this reading aloud task. But if you do, then you should certainly practice and make sure to revise. And let me reveal the answer about how to do that now. So make sure to practice Spanish pronunciation and reading Spanish out loud. Simply practicing reading Spanish texts of roughly the correct level or difficulty can be very useful. Perfecting your pronunciation, I may not sound like a Spanish person or Latin American, but you need to make sure that your pronunciation is clear and comprehensible. So this is how I would prioritize revising. Question 2 is true or false. The reading aloud task consists of 2 short passages. Does it consist of exactly 2 short passages? Let me reveal the answer shortly. Okay, here comes the answer. So this one's false. The reading aloud task, as we said, only contains 1 quite brief passage, as you saw in each of the examples. Question 3 is also true or false. The follow-up questions for the reading aloud task will move on to other topics or topic areas. Let me give some time to think over this. And let me give you the answer for this now too. This one is also false, actually. So the follow-up questions for the reading aloud task are going to be based on the same topic area as the mini passage for the reading aloud task. They will not be based on different topic areas at all. And question 4, our last one, do you have to sound like a native speaker in order to get full marks in your reading aloud task? This is something that was mentioned a few times. I'll give you a little bit of time. Okay, let's take a look at this answer. This one is the answer is no. So you certainly don't have to sound like a native speaker to get full marks or close to that full marks in the reading aloud task. The main thing is that your Spanish is comprehensible and that there are not clear mistakes in the pronunciation. And as long as that's the case, you can score very highly. So certainly do practice things like sound symbol correspondences, practice your pronunciation and being able to read Spanish out loud. But bear in mind that you do not have to sound like a native speaker. So if you have questions about anything in here at all, or if you'd like information about more personalized help, which I do offer as well, you can get in touch by email or through Facebook or Instagram. And I post every single day on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn, sharing my passion for languages with everybody, encouraging people to learn languages, providing some entertainment, but also providing useful techniques for how to learn languages effectively and while having fun too. And I do post a lot about GCSE and iGCSE on these platforms too. Again, particularly for languages, helping students maximize their marks, revise efficiently, and more. So I recommend following me on each of these platforms. I have many resources available, including free resources for GCSE and iGCSE languages, which include Spanish, of course. And I do one-to-one classes, group classes, courses, and help in other forms. So do get in touch if you'd like to know more about any of this.